As we close this year's Child Month, it is important to note that the conversation surrounding the well-being, protection and development of our nation's children is a never-ending one. While May serves as a special time to spotlight their needs and celebrate their achievements, ensuring that children are safe, supported and nurtured is a responsibility that extends far beyond 1 month on the calendar. Hi there everyone, welcome to this Sunday's edition of Jamaica Magazine. I'm your host, Adrian Atkinson. In today's magazine, we continue that conversation. More after this message. Observed annually on May 31, World No Tobacco Day shines a spotlight on the dangers of tobacco use and its impact on individuals, families and communities. Health experts continue to warn about the serious risks linked to smoking and other forms of tobacco consumption, including cancer, heart disease and respiratory illnesses. In this week's episode of Get the Facts, we examine the dangers associated with tobacco use, the growing concern surrounding youth exposure, and the support systems available for persons seeking to quit and begin healthier lifestyles. Let's join the discussion.
Welcome to Get the Facts, the program that provides you with information on government's policies and initiatives. I'm Theodore Henry. World No Tobacco Day serves as an important reminder of the harmful effects of tobacco use and the impact smoking continues to have on individuals, families, and communities. It also highlights the importance of support, awareness, and healthier lifestyle choices for persons trying to quit. Joining us to discuss the risks associated with tobacco use as well as practical ways to support loved ones on their journey to stop smoking is Omalora Wilson, Public Education and Awareness Manager for the National Council on Drug Abuse. Welcome to the program, Lady Wilson.
Thank you so much for having me.
Let's jump right into it. So, World No Tobacco Day. Why is an observance like that important in 2026?
Well, World No Tobacco Day is actually celebrated May 31st every year. It was brought to us by the World Health Organization. You're right, it's to raise awareness about tobacco and nicotine use and also in a way to promote healthier lifestyles as well as to kind of have a stance in terms of fighting what the tobacco and nicotine industry is bringing to society. What we've come to realize is that tobacco in and of itself or smoking is transforming every year and as generations go by.
Okay.
So it used to be a thing where it was cigars and cigarettes.
Right. That's the image in most
That's the image in most people's mind in terms of what tobacco and nicotine uses. Then we moved on to hookahs, which were very prevalent at parties, and now we're looking at a more modern look at what tobacco and nicotine uses in the presence of e-cigarettes and vapes, which is affecting young people and actually is very prominent amongst young people. And so we realize how important it is for us to continue this fight, continue to acknowledge World No Tobacco Day and continue to spread the message about what a positive and healthy lifestyle is. Funny enough, the theme for this year's World No Tobacco Day is unmasking the appeal, countering the use of nicotine and tobacco, which is important because what it does is explore the tactic that the industry is using in terms of putting nicotine and tobacco use through e-cigarettes and vapes more so as a more positive thing. So it's very colorful.
And
it's
not smoking.
Yeah, you know, and very social media trendy, etc. And so we have to ensure that we are unmasking that appeal, that person see that beyond all the glitz and glams of tobacco and nicotine use, it's very dangerous for your health.
Right. So let's talk about smoking a little bit, but I take the point very, very, very clearly that it's about tobacco consumption and not just smoking.
Not just smoking.
But let's talk about smoking a little bit. So when most people think about cigarettes and tobaccos, they're thinking about, okay, lung cancer. That's what's going to happen. But what else stems from such use?
You know, while lung cancer actually stays as one of the most prominent effect of tobacco use, there are actually many other things that are there. Something as simple as even affecting your oral health, going all the way up to heart diseases.
Bad teeth.
I know, right? Bad teeth and stink breath. And so we have realized that tobacco and nicotine use, especially through smoking, actually contributes not only to lung cancer, but heart disease, strokes, breathing issues. And then, of course, what is very visible now is that it affects your mental wellness. And so a lot of persons don't talk about those things because they believe that this is just the only impact of tobacco use or smoking per se. But there are so many other things to look at.
And you opened up tobacco use from beyond the cigarettes to e-cigarettes and the vaping, which is very popular now. You go into a gas station, all the colorful dispensers. And for especially young people, what impact does this consumption have on their mental development?
Well, the truth is your mind is not fully developed until you reach the age of 25. And when you do start to consume chemicals and substances that affect your mental development, it affects your overall and holistic self as an individual. Now, our issue that we have seen at the National Council on Drug Abuse is how visible and how promoted e-cigarettes and vapes are. So you're right, you see it in the supermarket, but it's also being sold right outside school gates.
Social media.
Social media push it in such a beautiful way. It's a lifestyle. And then you have even influencer marketing where influencers are vaping. So children or young people are saying, oh, it's okay to vape.
Right.
The problem we also note is how easy it is to hide vaping in public settings. So a child can have a vape that is masked as a highlighter, can be masked as an eraser right in front of a teacher's eye, and you can't really see it. Even the smell of vaping is different versus what cigarette is, because if someone lights up a cigarette, you can smell it. But vaping in and of itself, the smell itself is completely different and sometimes very easy to get rid of. So we have that issue right now when you look at e-cigarettes and vaping. Not only that, but when you look at how cigarettes are sold according to the World Health Organization's taglines or guidelines rather, where you must have the warning effect on it.
Right.
That's not necessarily the case on vapes. Vapes will be there and you won't necessarily see the warning sign that, tobacco use and smoking can kill you. That's not necessarily on vapes per se. So that in and of itself is also an issue. So vaping needs to be looked into and it needs to be curbed because of how prominent it's becoming and also how it's marketed to young people that it's a safe way.
I thought you were going to say unmasked. So the impacts are largely the same. Heart impacts, oral health, mental health. So there's no burning stick. But the consumption itself, especially for developing minds and developing bodies, it has an outsized impact.
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. So one of the other things that people are very familiar with when it comes to smoking in particular is the second-hand impact. Can you talk to us about that a bit?
Well, we've always heard people say that, smoking in and of itself, second-hand smoking is dangerous for persons around you. And it's true, especially when it comes down to children, because second-hand smoking oftentimes contribute to breathing issues such as asthma,
Asthma, yes. Okay.
Asthma, and all other things. You look and you're trying to figure out why your particular child has problems breathing, why your child all of a sudden develop asthma, but then you don't take the time out to realize that around your child's area, in the home, that he might be smoking nonstop, mommy might be smoking nonstop, and that in and of itself is an issue. What we've also noticed at the National Council on Drug Abuse is that pregnant women who are smoking affects the unborn child's ability to develop holistically.
Right,
so you realize that you have a child who is born with deformity, you have children who are born who are addicted to nicotine, which is present in cigarettes. Yes, we have those cases. We've had those cases. And also just overall, when you look at secondhand smoking, while we may think of just smoking in its actual sense, you do have effects of smoking in terms of family development, family issues, financial issues per se, which are also effects. And I would consider them to be also secondhand smoking effects.
Okay, we have to take a break here. Some very sobering information here, but please stay with us. We'll be right back.
Think positively. Focus on the power of optimism and hope. The thoughts we nurture shape our attitudes, actions, and ultimately our lives. So, reflect on the good in your life.
Welcome back to Get the Facts. Earlier, we discussed the dangers associated with tobacco use and the broader impact such delivery methods as smoking can have on health and well-being. Still with us is Omalora Wilson, Public Education and Awareness Manager for the National Council on Drug Abuse. Lady Wilson, in our first segment, you spoke about the fact that in a household, parents can be smoking, family members can be smoking, pregnant mothers can be smoking. And we had discussed some of the impacts of nicotine consumption, tobacco consumption. And one thing that we hadn't said was how addictive it could be. Now, there are people who are watching and they might be thinking, okay, I hear this. You're unmasking some stuff. You've taught us some heavy things, but it's hard because I'm addicted. What recourse does such a person have?
Well, addiction in and of itself, overall, just trying to get out of any addiction is a difficult task. Yeah. And for tobacco per se, why it is addictive is because it contains nicotine, which is a very highly addictive substance. Right. And that in and of itself, it affects the brain's reward system. And not only that, but it is used oftentimes as a stress reliever, as a socializing supporter, and even just a part of your routine. So one of the problems we have when persons are quitting is they experience withdrawal symptoms. And withdrawal symptoms are very difficult things to actually be going back and forth with. Something that is a part of your everyday life, which disappears, which alters your mind chemically, is something very difficult to take on. So that's one of the reasons why we have such a difficult task when it comes down to quitting and recovering from addiction. It's just on the basis of just withdrawal in and of itself can be difficult. Right. But why we need, when it comes down to recovery, one of the most important things that someone would need in and of itself is support system. Support in terms of knowledge and education. You have to know why exactly you are trying to quit this journey. You have to know why you ended up in this journey. Okay. And you also need to know where your support is in terms of from the ministries, from agencies, from your family and friends. Because addiction in and of itself, or recovery from addiction, is not a one-person thing. It takes a village to recover in and of itself. And so when you look at these things, when you prepare yourself, these are things that you have to bring along with you in this journey. One of the things that we have realized too when it comes on to coping or recovering from addiction is that you have to stay far away from your triggers. You can't say that you are trying to stop smoking, but you're around friends who are consistently smoking.
Strong.
You might think you're strong, but peer pressure is stronger.
Right.
And peer pressure is not only a thing that happens with young people, it happens all around. That's why it's called peer pressure. Right. And so you stay away from your triggers. You stay away from things that gets you in a negative mood. You stay away from friends that gets you in a negative mood. You stay away from circumstances that put you in a negative mood that will allow you to want to smoke, to alleviate that particular stress. You rely on family and friends play a key part in this because you are supposed to be encouraging rather than judging. So family and friends are supposed to be checking in on you. Family and friends are supposed to say to you, hey, I found something that is actually a very healthy alternative. Would you want to come and work with me for this? Family and friends are supposed to be there to inform you and also to have your emergency, assistance should things go wrong. So say, for instance, you relapse on this journey. They know who to call. They know who to bring you to. They know how to get you the necessary help because that's how it is supposed to be. It's supposed to be a supportive journey with multiple people on the line.
You mentioned relapse, and someone might be struggling with that and thinking, oh, it has happened. But in the struggle against addiction, we expect that sort of thing to happen. So it is, would you say that it is a part of the process that somebody should be prepared to take?
It is 100% a part of the process. The thing about recovery, it is not just going up. It's up, down, sometimes it's straight, and then up and down again.
Right.
And that's why we say recovery in and of itself is not a one-time thing, it's not a one-day thing, it's a timely process that requires you to be invested, for you to be locked in, and for you to have expectations of what can go wrong. Again, this is a part of your routine. That's why it becomes an addiction. It's something that you look forward to. It's something that you consider to be as simple or just a very important part of you coping and living. And so when and so when you are giving up this negative contribution to your life, you have to prepare yourself for all the drawbacks and all the fallbacks that will come with it. So when we at the National Council on Drug Abuse we're assisting persons with treatment and recovery, one of the things that we want to get in your mind from day one is that it's going to be a timely process. Sometimes you'll fall, but we're here to help, to keep you going.
Right. I like that you said it's a difficult process, but you never use the word impossible.
No, never.
Use the word impossible. All right, so you're giving somebody some hope now.
Absolutely.
All right, so you mentioned the necessity of family and friends supporting and the work that the National Council on Drug Abuse has been doing. What are some of the negative ways or the harmful ways you have seen family and friends try to support?
Well, you know, when I always say to people that shame is one of the worst things you can do. At the National Council on Drug Abuse, we say that the fear tactic is outdated. You try to tell people that, oh, you're good dead if you stop this, you're good, because it's not going to help.
Right.
And of course,
it's not a rational thing that you're going through.
No. And so you can't say to persons that if this is just the only result if you do this.
Right.
You know, we also have the problem where persons are shaming you. So they go to the church and say, oh, what I call them out. They call you out on social media, etc. And while you think that that is helping the person, sometimes again we have to look at positive approaches that assist these individuals. So sometimes family members may think they're helping, but they're actually worsening the situation.
Right.
Which is why we always say to them, take it from an encouragement point of view than a judgment point of view, because they need support alongside this journey.
We'll underline that. Take it from an encourament point of view, not a judgment.
Right.
We're in the final few seconds of this interview. Where can Jamaicans go for support, guidance, resources if they want to quit tobacco consumption or help somebody else?
If you or anyone that you know may need assistance with substance misuse, you can call the National Council on Drug Abuse at 876-564-HELP. That's 564-4357. You can follow us on social media at DrugFreeJA, and I guarantee you that we're here to help you in our mission to build a happy, healthy, drug-free Jamaica.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. This has been Get the Facts. Our guest was Omalora Wilson, Public Education and Awareness Manager for the National Council on Drug Abuse. Thank you for watching, and until next time, I'm Theodore Henry. Take care.
We can no longer turn a blind eye to our children. Each of us have the duty to protect them. As we continue to strengthen our protection campaign, we ask that you try positive discipline. Talk not once, twice, 3 times, 7 times even. In talking to your child, you make them comfortable to tell you about what is affecting them. Tell our children the truth and tell them what is wrong and why. We remind our parents, if you are having difficulties with your child, we are here for you to support you, along with the many other agencies that are set up for this purpose. Additionally, we remind parents that if you see another parent in need of help or sound advice, reach out and provide support. Every child is our child.
Every child deserves the opportunity to learn, grow, and succeed, including children living with disabilities. For deaf and hard of hearing children, creating inclusive spaces, access to support, and equal opportunities can help pave the way for a bright future. In this feature, we'll look at the importance of empowering these young people and ensuring no child is left behind. Take a look.
Hi, I'm Ari Jones. I go to Danny Williams School for the Deaf.
Not all voices are heard, but every story can be told. At the Danny Williams School for the Deaf, students use their hands, their hearts, and their minds to communicate, learn, and dream.
The mission of the Danny Williams School for the Deaf is to create an environment for our deaf students that will prepare them for society. You know, we want to prepare well-rounded individuals, and we also offer, you know, basic fundamental and essential skills so that they will be able to develop their fullest potential.
Here, education is more than just words. It is movement, connection, and self-expression in a language the world is learning to understand.
So adapting comes very different ways because they are mostly visual learners. So we use charts. I use a lot of games because we are so involved in technology now, so we have to use the different apps that are out there as well to teach the students, to get them interested in the lesson too. It's mostly hands-on based, even though they're getting the content, which is learning it word for word.
Every educator here is committed to creating a supportive and enriching environment where students are encouraged to thrive in both academics and life.
Seeing the children growth, seeing them using the language or using what you have taught them in different areas of their life, even when they have left here, and they see on the run and they said, Miss, you know, and they start talking about what they learned, that you know you have made that, you have touched them in some way.
All right, that's a long thing. I want to do a lot of writing. I think I want to write books. I want to do some editing and do some more writing and maybe to produce books.
One of them is self-confidence, even though we have to build that within them, telling them that even though they have this disability of deafness, they can accomplish whatever they want.
I talk. I just love to talk. And I also like to share my snacks and the phone. I like to play on my tablets.
Danny Williams School for the Deaf offers an inclusive program that cater not only to students that are deaf, but also students that are deaf and have additional disabilities.
So we offer a program that is so extensive that, you know, we develop the entire man, so to speak. So we do not only teach the regular math and language, but we also focus on, you know, the daily living skills and those essential skills that they're going to need. We also try to foster the talents and the skills and the abilities that they already have innately, right? So our biggest hope for the future of the students here at Danny Williams is that they just become the best that they can be. You know, not everyone would necessarily excel in the academics per se, but their gifts and their talents, the abilities that they have, you know, just for them to develop that, to hone that, and just to be the best person that they can be in the future.
Speaking of talent, how can we bridge the gap?
We encourage persons to learn our language. You know, many persons, they don't even know the correct term is deaf. You know, they might use another term that is very, that the deaf do not really like, that I do not want to say right now, you know. But we also want information to be more accessible to the deaf. For example, you know, we may require an interpreter. Whenever we go out to any event, an interpreter must be there so that our deaf persons would be able to benefit and to get for information to be accessible to them.
At the Danny Williams School for the Deaf, students are not defined by their hearing loss. They are empowered by their potential. After all, the world is learning to listen, and they are ready to be heard.
Do you own land and need a title? Well, the National Land Agency NLA can help. Through the systematic land registration process, the NLA will assist residents to get titles in declared project areas across Jamaica. Systematic land registration is the methodical and orderly registration of parcels of land in a designated area known as systematic adjudication area. For further information on the systematic land registration process, including declared systematic adjudication areas, who can apply and the benefits, visit the National Land Agency's website at www.nla.gov.jm or email asknla@nla.gov.jm. The National Land Agency, one goal.
Coffee was introduced in Jamaica in 1728. Creighton Estate was established around 1765. And the Blue Mountain Range and the central region of Jamaica, which is the Grand Ridge of Jamaica, were the major coffee producing regions. Currently, we are fully certified under the Rainforest Alliance, and we are the very first entity in the Caribbean region to attain that certification. Now, the Blue Mountain Range of Jamaica is a microclimate of the island and has provided the perfect conditions for growing the Arabica coffee. A typical day in the Blue Mountain, the most sunlight is in the mornings from about 11:32 to 4 p.m. You know, this is the weather that we experience. This is a norm in the Blue Mountain. It's nothing unusual, you know, for the range to be covered with mist. And after sunset, the temperature basically goes below 20 degrees Celsius. So those are the perfect ingredients to develop high quality coffee. You know, the culture here is rich. We're an extremely creative, you know, set of people. In Jamaica, there's everything. If you're a nature lover, we have it. If you like the wetlands, we have it. You know, great coffee, you know, great food. You know, God has been good to us. You know, the God has been good to us. The universe has been good to us, you know, as a country. You know, and this rock, I love it, man. I love it.
We've come to the end of today's show, and I do hope that you enjoyed this package. To catch a repeat of this or any other, feel free to log on to our website at jis.gov.jm. Until next time, I'm Adrian Atkinson. On behalf of the entire team here at the GIS, do take care.
This has been a production of the Jamaica Information Service, the voice of Jamaica.